Hey everybody, it's me, Greg, your regular old host of Random Encounter. I got some news for you, and then we're going to get into episode 198. So kicking it off, Crowdfunding Chronicles continues its chronicle. We have Dwarve, which is kind of Zelda-y, like a top-down action RPG thing. It's got some tower defense stuff in there. It's got dwarves. It's dwarves. So that sounds pretty rad, to be honest. Our other entry is Scarlet Republics, which is another strategy RPG, but a little bit more Machiavellian and political. This will definitely be up Pete Leavitt's avenue for sure. But go check out both of these titles. But yeah, go check out both these titles for something a little new to get your teeth into and get down on the ground floor of the perks. We have also in the feature department another column starting up called Flashback Friday, where members of the team are going to be sharing their fond RPG memories. Mark Chan starts us off with When, How, and Why I Fell in Love with Wild Arms, which is a fantastic game. But yeah, this new Flashback Friday column is neat, and maybe you'll discover some classic RPG favorites that you may have missed out on. Another fantastic feature that we cover, which is still very pertinent with the ongoing pandemic as of this recording, RPGs is Therapy 2. We have another round of folks talking about all the different RPGs that have helped them kind of cope with various stressors in life. So Zach Wilkerson has once again guided the team to create this beautiful, thoughtful feature for you to enjoy. And lastly, Mark Chan once again visits with another Flashback Friday, since, we're going to get two every podcast, since this is a bi-weekly show. Anyways, whatever. So yeah, Mark Chan went into Sakura Wars, Fat Stacks of Actual Paper, or How I Learned to Play Sakura Wars. Once again, neat title. Back in the day, Nathan was talking about it with the new title that just came out. So yeah, go check out this read and see if it's a series worth diving into. And as always, we got a hefty amount of reviews for you to check out. The first one since our last recording comes from Alana Hanks, who got into 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. There's also a video review over on our YouTube channel, depending on how you want to partake of this one. And it's just a gorgeous game, so I do recommend checking out the video because it just looks so pretty. But all in all, Alana was really high on this game. This weird kind of hybrid mix of RTS, JRPG, tower defense, visual novel is just, it looks really neat. It was a joy for myself to edit, and I really want to check this game out. So she is definitely a fan, and you might be too. She gave it RPG Fan Editor's Choice, so go check out her review of this stellar game. Audra Bowling continues playing all of the games. She was our reviewer on Marvel's Avengers, which comes at us from Square Enix, I think. Yeah, they're the ones who have been pushing this one pretty hard. Overall, it seems pretty cool, but definitely has some ways to grow as a game. But yeah, if you are a fan of Marvel's expanded universe, this is definitely going to be a game for you to check out. And you can play with some friends, so why not? Get in there, get your hero on. Our next review and partnered video review comes from me with Summer and Mara. That game was just delightful. I didn't mind it too much at all. Definitely more geared towards younger audiences though, so you got some kids in your life who want to just get their chill summer farm on. This game is definitely worth your while, so go check out my review on that. Snack World, The Dungeon Crawl, Gold, is a thing, and I can't not say that, I guess, weirdly seriously, but at any rate. It's, dropped on the Switch, cool traditional roguelike that Nikki reviewed for us, and mileage may vary with this. It's, seems like a silly fun game, but it's kind of, I guess, up to you what you're going to take from it. If you just like that whole grindy adventure, then check it out, and definitely a very new, different IP and style, so if you're looking for something fresh in your game style, then check this one out. Kaylin Argyros got into Paradise Killer because it looks dope, and it's apparently pretty good. It plays like a neat little murder mystery it's got a lot of style and some great music, but there's definitely a bit of room for improvement in how the game kind of handles overall, but it still seems like a pretty solid game, so go check out what Kaylin had to say about that. And our final review comes from Isaac Parsons with Hotel Sowls, which is a weird sounding title that's on the Nintendo Switch. It's a graphic adventure. I don't know, it's got a bit of kind of an Undertale-ish Earthbound vibe in terms of how it presents itself, but obviously the gameplay is not at all the same. But yeah, he thinks it's alright. It's got a very unique atmosphere and world for you to check out, so, and yeah, it definitely captures what it's going for in terms of its sense of style quite well, even if it's lacking in some of the music and the overall story element of it. Yeah, check out what he had to say about this quirky little title. Maybe it's just one worth checking out. And that's it. That's all. We will have hopefully some more music reviews on the docket coming up, but in the meantime, as I said before in the last episode, Rhythm Encounter's back, so at least that's one place you can check out some music reviews from us, and otherwise, enjoy Random 198. Hey everybody, you could be a sports fan, you could be a game fan, you can be a fan of whatever, but you're here because you're RPG fans. And I am your host, Greg Delmage, here with Random Encounter 198. I'm repeating myself because you probably just heard that in the intro, because I always finish the intros that way, and then I forget when I record this before it. Whatever, who cares? It's a whole thing. You don't need to know my process. But I'm here with my co-host, Jono Logan, to hopefully keep us on track today.
Well, I know I'm an RPG fan.
Aren't you? Aren't you just?
It says that on my business card.
Wait, you have business cards? Mike got you business cards? I want business cards.
No, I got myself business cards. It's kind of it's a vanity thing, really. I don't hand them out to anyone. I just have them sitting on my desk so I feel important.
I think we briefly talked about it on last episode, but once again, congrats on becoming head of the reviews department here. So I guess that does entitle you to getting fancy business cards.
Ooh, yes. Yeah, you're right. We'll have to get Mike right on that.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it's not like he's busy enough already.
Chief Reviewer General, Jono Logan. Other people who work for Jono include Nathan Lee, who's on the podcast today.
Hey everyone, I do have an RPG fan business card.
Oh, really? I guess for con stuff. Was it for E3? Did you go to E3? I can't remember.
Yes, I did. Back in 2018. Seems like an eternity.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. Which, Jono, this was going to be your E3. Weren't you going to go this year?
I don't want to talk about it.
I know. I'm sorry. You could have had a business card, but you don't.
Could have got doxxed by somebody. God, it's such a lost opportunity.
There'll be more E3s. We got this.
Will there?
I mean, maybe. I don't know. It was dicey as it was. Exactly. There'll be other conventions. We'll all meet at PAX. Whatever.
Really? Will there?
Maybe. We're clean. Don't take this away from us, Jono. Anyways, you heard Pete Leavitt. He's also here again as well.
So, Jono, I can hook you up with my guy. You got to get the matte finish. You got to get the QR code on the back. You got to get the rounded edges. If you want, we can put a little foil on it.
Is your guy Vistaprint?
No, but for the sake of the joke, yeah, Vistaprint.
Everyone's got a guy.
You have some snazzy barbershop business cards?
I do, yeah. They're matte, and they have a QR code on the back to get you over to my scheduling webpage.
Oh, that's snazzy.
I'm pretty happy with them.
Fancy.
I might have to make that like the Random Encounter graphic now. It's just your business card.
I'll send it to you. I don't know. I mean, sure. I don't mind the cross pollination. It's not going to help my business because I really am very limited in the geographical area that I can work. So
it's okay. Pear will fly over from Norway, and he will get it done by you. Anyways, everybody, we're here to talk about games. I know it is standard custom to talk about everything but games for like half an hour with Pete Leavitt, but we're not going to fall into that trap today because I got stuff to do, unfortunately. So we got games to talk about, and we're going to talk about those right after a word from our not sponsors, Microsoft and PlayStation, who revealed, well, Sony, I guess, who revealed their consoles and prices finally. I mean, we had the consoles, but now we know how much they cost. The console war, I guess, speculation is done now. I don't know.
For now.
There's still stories to be told, too. Like, how much did Sony have to shuffle their feet to change the price and whatever? That's kind of a fun thing to think about that a lot of people are speculating on right now.
Yeah, because I don't have the prices off the top of my head. I mean, the PlayStation, it's $399 and $499 American.
Because a Blu-ray player costs $100.
Apparently. And it doesn't come with more space. Or it does, yeah, they have the same amount of space, don't they? I can't remember if they've given us the spec. Yeah, that sounds right. And then the Xbox One Series X, am I right? Or is it just the Xbox Series X?
Xbox X is, yeah.
Exactly. Xbox X is up there trending with Pokemon Masters X. No, stupid jokes aside, what's the prices on that one? I can't remember. Is it a bit more or less?
It's the same price for the
It is the
top
same?
model, and then it's $200 cheaper for the digital.
Okay, so that's where that kind of... Yeah, and so Sony didn't want to take that much of a wash, apparently.
Well, but the digital.
yeah.
So to be fair, the Xbox Series S isn't just like a driveless Xbox. It also has like a little, like the GPU is like a step down and things like that. So there are hardware differences. Like I guess some of the ray tracing or whatever they're trying to do, or like the 4K capability will be a little bit different. Or I don't know all the details. I don't
think it does 4K, does it? I thought it only did 1440.
And that's what I mean. Just like the resolution capabilities vis-a-vis frame rate and whatnot are going to be different between the two models. So they're selling a lower powered model. It's still going to be, I mean, the word I've heard here and there is that it's about on par with an Xbox One X as far as power. But then it also has like that fancy SSD for the fast loading and whatever else.
I don't know. In terms of, I've watched all of the reveals just like all of you have, and I'm not. I mean, I've been very impressed with what Microsoft has done in like the last 2 days. But in terms of the Xbox Series S versus the PlayStation 5 digital edition, it's not even a question in my mind. Like, I'm going for the digital edition. I don't collect games physically. I just never really have. So the idea that I can have a PlayStation that's just as powerful as the full model, just without a Blu-ray drive in it, is very attractive to me. But the idea of getting a digital console that is less powerful than the current generation, and likely, I mean, based on what's happened with PlayStation and Xbox in the past, there's going to be a PlayStation Series SX, there's going to be a PlayStation 5 Pro, which means that thing is going to be left in the dust real fast in like the next couple of years. I know it's attractive now and it's cheap, but I'd rather get a current generation console, essentially.
Well, in Microsoft, what they're doing, they really are shifting their business model over to a service-based thing. So if it's not the case already, they're definitely moving toward the hardware side of things being more of a secondary element to their business. Because of course all those Xbox Series X games you could play on your computer, or you can play through xCloud if you have that service on your like Android phone or whatever, or on your TV through some dongle or something, or through a browser. Or how are they doing browser? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I guess that they also are doing like a browser thing. But so they're shifting more toward that, definitely, and you can see that they're almost saying, hey, we have this really high-powered one, and then we have, if you don't have a computer or you're not interested in playing games on your computer, you want a console, but you don't care about the high power, you can get this other one if you want, but really sign up for our services.
I can appreciate that. I mean, obviously, a lot of these companies think that game streaming is the way of the future.
Yeah, they're trying to go into that whole Netflix model, which is problematic in and of itself for the industry as a whole.
The Xbox in and of itself is not just purely streaming. They're also like, you can just play the Xbox games on your computer. Like, you can have them natively on your PC through the Windows Store and things like that. So they're also offering a streaming option. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting the way that they're going, I think. But yeah, as far as hardware, I mean, the cool thing about the Series S is that it's really cheap and it looks like a big old walkie-talkie or something.
And considerably smaller than the mountain that is the Series X.
Right.
Yeah, which looks like it's like it was reminding me of just like those really powerful like Mac Minis, like just the big black cylinder.
Looks like a server,
so just,
you know?
But yeah, exactly. It's like a big black obelisk of game power.
Mm-hmm. Throw a bone in the air, catches the sun, you see the Xbox Series X.
Johnny, you were saying you're really impressed with what Microsoft's been doing. Was it the fact that they've acquired Bethesda, or is there more to it than that?
Well, I mean, yeah, the fact they acquired Bethesda is, I mean, people are calling it a game changer. I think it's more than that. It's crazy, especially how much they paid for it. I don't think Disney bought LucasArts for that much, did they?
I don't even know the price, to be frank.
5.7 billion?
For Bethesda.
For Bethesda. 7.5 had the numbers
7.5.
reversed. I was thinking that was a little cheap. Yeah, I mean, what they're getting is some of the most incredible games and series ever made. I think that's, I mean, I wouldn't call it a deal, but I would certainly call it a massive deal for the future of the Xbox and obviously Windows 10. And I'm obviously Sony's not tremendously thrilled about the news, but at least they're still getting the exclusives they were promised.
Yeah, I guess that might undercut their future title development with the company in some ways. I mean, I don't. It's like it's not like Minecraft, for example, was like pulled from PlayStation or anything like that. I don't think, or was it?
No, I don't think it was.
And yeah, exactly. So I mean, there's still some stuff.
You can still play Minecraft on your iPhone. So
that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that Microsoft is going to not release games for the PlayStation 5. They will, but it'll probably be after quite a healthy exclusivity period on their own consoles.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything I've heard from other companies, other development studios that have been acquired by Microsoft is that they're pretty good at staying hands off. They're pretty good at letting the company keep its culture as much as they can. And people so far have been reported to be pretty happy. Like they're getting paid better and there's not so much interference from Microsoft apparently. But I'm not completely thrilled about this. I'm happy for the devs in the short term, definitely, that they're able to have better pay and better working conditions. We definitely stand for that. But as far as just the long-term matter of corporate consolidation, and I mean Bethesda's huge, but Microsoft, even when you take the sum of what Microsoft has acquired in the past few years between Bethesda and Obsidian and a bunch of the other companies that they've acquired, it's nowhere near like the level of monopoly or antitrust as like Disney or whatever, but we should be a little concerned when we see things move in that direction. We should at least look on it with a little bit of skepticism, in my opinion. And so, I mean, in the short term, for the folks involved, it's going to be a good opportunity, it sounds like. But we should just keep a wary eye on this kind of corporate behavior.
Agreed. But that being said, I mean, I saw some celebration about this online, and I certainly don't think it's going to matter. Is like, oh, yay, Microsoft owns Fallout now. And it's like, well, yeah, technically, but Bethesda are still going to be developing it, so Fallout 76 isn't going to be going anywhere. That Microsoft acquired Bethesda, the developer, not just the publisher, might mean that we get some games sooner than later, or maybe they'll have more timed, like God only knows. Would Microsoft actually would they want to deal with the sheer number of bugs of a Bethesda game, or would they insist that those bugs are ironed out before it's released?
Yeah, that's there could be a better quality of life overall.
I don't think they would enforce something like that.
Yeah, because the fans need something to fix.
Do you?
Just for clarity's sake, they isn't it true? Didn't I hear they acquired ZeniMax? It wasn't like just Bethesda; they got ZeniMax.
Yeah, the publisher.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so they not only got Fallout and Elder Scrolls, etc., but they also got like Doom, which is crazy.
They got Doom, they got Wolfenstein, they got Prey, they got Dishonored, they got some wild properties.
And they also got like upcoming new properties like Deathloop.
Deathloop, yeah.
Yeah, you just finished Dishonored, didn't you?
I played through all of the Dishonored game that you can play through up to now. I finished it up a couple months ago. But I hit it hard. I was playing a few times a day, just not really thinking about much else. And
it's so good.
Even just constantly thinking about Dishonored when I'm not playing it, that game leaves a serious impact. At least it did for me. So much that I'm so impressed with. And Dishonored 1 came out in 2015 or something? So it's like no spring chicken. Does anyone know? Anyway, it's been out for a while, so but I still feel like it does
2012.
2012. God.
2012.
Aged well. I mean, again, it's
Wow.
part of the whole plateau that we hit with games. But for gameplay and looks, it's still a standout game.
It's got a very painterly look, so it does hold up in that way. And of course, Dishonored 2 is much sharper and nicer looking, but and I forgot about this because we're past that moment, but when Dishonored 2 launched, it was hampered by a whole bunch of like performance issues because id Software and be id Software, id Tech be id Tech, and id Tech lately has been kind of not so easy to optimize. Apparently is a modified version of the id Tech engine called the Void engine, I think. But anyway, the way that the game just keeps track of all of the happenings in the world, all of your actions, and how it comes back and plays out in future missions or in the endings or whatever. There's like, it seems like there's more than a dozen permutations of the ending that you can get based on, like who lives, who gets exiled, who whatever. It's like so many different things. But yeah, so Greg and Jono, you guys played it, right? Nathan, have you played Dishonored?
Yeah, I have for sure.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't played it.
Yeah.
I played through the whole series too, and I agree with you 100%. I just love it. I think it's a phenomenal. I mean, you kind of want to call it a trilogy, but Death of the Outsider isn't. It doesn't really feel like part 3. It feels like a side story that is equally important. And
the DLC from Dishonored 1 is just as critical too, which is Brig, More Witches, and the Knife of Dunwall. You play as Dowd in both of them. Anyway, Dishonored, it's a first-person kind of sword slashing witchcraft game in like a steampunk Victorian type of setting.
Alternate reality England. Yeah,
alternate history. Everything runs on whale oil instead of coal, so like people are out there whaling and torturing whales it's this horrendous thing that's driving all the industry in this empire. And it's just it's made by a lot of the same people who made some of, in my opinion, the best games ever made. So some of the folks that were involved with like Thief, which is a series I love. So there's a lot of stealth, but and really good stealth that are augmented by the powers that you get. The power you use the most is this power called Blink, where it's like you just teleport a short distance ahead of you, and all the traversal and all the usage of the powers and everything feel really good. The stealth makes sense, but if you play that game violently, it's a lot of fun. You can see some really awesome YouTube videos of guys just
speed running.
Basically, it's not even speed running. It's like doing all the wild, like utilizing the systems to do all these wild, like stylish room clearing moves. It's like slaughter running. I don't know.
Slaughter running. That's exactly what it is.
Let's call it that.
I mean, when I played it, I'm such a white hat. I try to play through the game as silently as possible, only killing when I have to.
Me too. I was trying to go for that achievement too, and I got to the end of the game and I didn't get it. And I was like, "Who did I kill?
Yeah,
who did I accidentally drown?
You knocked someone out, and then they like fell off of a bookshelf and died or something."
Well, exactly. That's it. It's like somewhere someone accidentally was killed.
Or they accidentally fell off of the dock into the water and drowned or something like that.
Citizens are surprisingly fragile in the Dishonored series.
Yeah, but I was so impressed. I wasn't expecting to be as blown away with the world building as I was, because I had heard so much about Dishonored around the time that the games came out, and that's almost the first thing anyone ever wants to talk about is how incredible these worlds are. And if you hear it over and over, you kind of just like get used to it. But it's completely staggering the level of care and detail and atmosphere that they put into these. A lot of these missions are multi-part missions where you start off on the city streets and you're trying to like get to your mission, and then once you're in your mission, you're like in a different area. Maybe you're inside of a mansion, or like the head of the governmental mansion or something, or some kind of facility, and you have to sneak through there. Or do however you're going, complete the mission however you're going to complete the mission. And it's just the thing about Dishonored is it's in the wake of this huge plague that's brought on by a big rat infestation in the city. So it's very much akin to like the Black Plague, but like what if it happened later in history kind of thing. And rats are a constant motif in the game. Like sometimes you'll come across a swarm of rats and they'll like attack you. They're all really aggressive. There's also a witch power where you can summon a swarm of rats to attack people with. And so it's got this real slow decay to it. And what I realized playing through the games in such quick succession and this world building exercise that they seem to do, that I think is very much could be viewed through an RPG lens, is how they do dichotomies and juxtapositions within the world. And almost everywhere in Dishonored that you are, it's like two places in one. So the most obvious example, and you see this a lot in Dishonored 1, is like the wealth gap. And so you have, like, it's crazy because everywhere where there has been poverty or maybe like middle class populations, like either impoverished or middle class populations, they're almost empty because those places have been decimated by the plague. And so you're going through apartments and you're sneaking through like from rooftop to rooftop and getting into people's apartments and going through them to go out the back window toward your objective. And you can tell it's been abandoned for years. And that kind of slow decay and is like everywhere. And even in some of the more wealthy areas or in some of the more privileged areas, you can see that they're very that they're not taken care of like they might have been one time. So there's a lot of these magnificent areas you're in, but there's a little bit of squalor here and there because like no one ever goes in such and such room or such and such corner because there's less people. So there's less staff perhaps, and maybe the person's fortune has dwindled or something.
There are RPG mechanics in these games. Unfortunately, not quite enough for us to cover on RPG Fan, and that's right. I mean, that's a debate that lots of people have had.
I don't think we did cover this one, although it was definitely discussed in past podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens when Death Loop gets a little bit closer because it uses a lot very similar mechanics to Dishonored. But I mean, Dishonored 2, in my mind, has two of the most memorable levels I've ever played in a video game, and that's the Clockwork Mansion and a Crack in the Slab. And one
Thank you.
Yeah, they're incredible.
It's so everyone talked about Clockwork Mansion when the game came out, and it is, I mean, for good reason. Obviously, it's an amazing feat of level design, and you can tell because when the Thief games came out in the 90s, those games were in 98 and 2000. Particularly Thief 2 was widely lauded as having some of the best level design in any game to that point. And you could tell these people think about this a lot. So Clockwork Mansion is like definitely a culmination of all that talent and all those resources. But a Crack in the Slab, I didn't hear anyone talking about. And so the Clockwork Mansion is a
exactly
mansion,
what it sounds like.
Yeah, all the rooms and all the floors and everything are all kind of mechanical. You pull a lever, they swing in and out, and you navigate. There's times where you can kind of get behind the machinations and kind of navigate that way too. And this guy who owns it is like thinks it's all a game because he knows you're there to talk to him or kill him maybe, but he's like, play my little game in my mansion. But a Crack in the Slab is where you go to this area where there's like a governmental mansion that's been seemingly abandoned for years, but the guy is still alive, but he has lost touch with reality. He's lost all faculties. He has he's not present. And when you approach him, this is a magnificent mansion that's just been completely overrun. It's in an area where they're mining for silver, so there are entire rooms that are like half filled with silver dust that has been blown in through the windows. And it's so you can climb up these mountains of silver dust, like where the reflecting pool is in the courtyard, but it's just covered in silver dust. And the outsider, who is a constant figure in these games, who is like kind of the dark god that gives all the witches their witchcraft power, he gives you something called a timepiece. He appears where you find this man playing piano in his abandoned mansion, and he gives you something called a timepiece, and it lets you jump back and forth between the present time and a certain point in the past in that mansion. So you can navigate that way. The house is pristine and perfect, and it's full of guards and staff, and there's like a party going on. And then you can click it again, and you're back into this like desolated, obliterated manner. So with this timepiece device, if you push another button, it'll bring up a lens that's like rendered real time in your first person view of the game. And when you look around, you see the other timeline from the one you are, as it would be if you were to like warp back there.
Months
so you can,
ago. Or years ago.
You can look years ago. So you can look around the room and be like, oh, okay, like here's this room that was blocked before, but I'm here now, so I can click and I'll jump back over there. And that's how you like kind of that's how you complete the traversal puzzle of that level. And it's just incredible inventiveness. Death of the Outsider is a similar kind of like two worlds colliding, where there's the void and the real world, and it's like they collide and mix together in these really imaginative ways. So the way that they do these juxtapositions of physical space is really unlike anything I've ever seen before or since now, because it's been so long since those games came out.
And it's not just that, it's also the fact that these people are masters of architecture and style. Like, every place looks different. They're in different regions in a parallel, I guess, version of Europe. Where this one, I think, takes place in, I can't remember the locale, but it's basically Spain, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, it's like a Mediterranean area. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really cool. I mean, this level specifically, the time travel mechanics are amazing. And I mean, I love walking around the mansion because I'm a huge fan of abandoned places videos on YouTube, and this is like a dream for that. It's a really cool game. If anyone's listening, I mean, if you are an RPG fan and you're looking for something a little bit different, check out Dishonored. It's cool.
Yeah, it's stunning.
Yeah, it's great, like RPG adjacent gameplay, but only if you like the first person thing. Like, this will feed very much into kind of what Jono was playing later when we get to that. But yeah. But speaking of the whole Microsoft acquisition of Bethesda and the idea of console exclusivity, Sony does have a pretty sweet console exclusive title coming out now that we finally got announcement on. We've all been hoping and speculating, and we wouldn't be good RPG fans if we didn't talk about how
Spider-Man.
much we love Peggle 2. No, Final Fantasy 16 finally had its grand reveal. And boy, howdy, does it ever look like all the best parts of Final Fantasy 14 in a single-player game, I find. That was the thing that struck me immediately, was the aesthetic of that and also The Witcher. But let's dish on that, because
but with like
new Final Fantasy,
Devil May Cry fighting.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, especially with like the flashy like Phoenix Feather wing thing coming out, which I really hope they don't try and tie in some sort of stupid one-wing angel thing with Sephiroth and that as well.
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
It's cool. I mean, when I looked at it for the first time, I felt very similar to how I felt when I saw Final Fantasy IX for the first time. Final Fantasy 7 and 8 both kind of moved along the technological ladder to almost modern day in places, and that's fine. It's good. It's a cool aesthetic, modern fantasy. But that Final Fantasy IX instantly moved back to classic Final Fantasy tropes and things and put a new spin on it. I loved that at the time, and this reminds me a lot of that. It doesn't, obviously you're not in a car traveling across the country on a highway as Stand By Me plays. You're in a fantasy realm, and that I love that.
Yeah, it's definitely going back to its roots in probably a lot of good ways. That the game, like you said, it seems to kind of go through those. It seems to go through those patterns of mixing up the setting and then going back to its roots, because we've really only had 11, 12, and then 13 went way off the rails. 14 kind of came back to it, but 14 is its own separate entity. So in like the single player series, like 10, 13, and 15 were all like big departures from that classic medieval setting of the original core games. And it's great because the whole franchise has done such a great job of, more often than not, I mean, you'll take from it what you will, has done a great job of at least making these new and exciting, interesting worlds to explore. Just the gameplay doesn't always lend itself to being the best to explore. And then you ask questions like in Final Fantasy 15, it's like, why are there all these small towns that aren't being overrun by monsters if monsters are so prevalent that I'm sent out to hunt them all the time? But anyways, that's a whole deeper issue. But 16 seems to get right back into that. Hey, people liked The Witcher. People liked Game of Thrones. So let's go for that dark, gritty fantasy that people seem to be craving these days.
I need to see more.
For sure, we all do.
Yeah, it looked cool in a lot of ways. Final Fantasy has been hit or miss as far as like the political intrigue and kind of history inspired kind of thing that they occasionally go for.
Tactics in 12, I think, hit it best. But that's also, I think, endemic of the Ivalice world. And 14 apparently does a fantastic job as well. But
and sometimes again, those games are still good, even if they don't nail it. Obviously, 12 and Tactics did do a really good job. But even if they don't nail it when they're going for that kind of thing, those games can still be plenty good. But this might seem superficial, but hear me out. My thing is okay, well, first of all, I need to confirm. Was it just me, or was that kid blonde and then turned evil and then his hair turned black? It was the same person, right?
The little kid and then the grown man?
Yeah.
Do you mean the grown man?
Yeah, so not the grown man, but clearly the little kid grows up. He's got the exact same face as the little kid, except his hair is black and he's a little older.
I got the impression that he was the little kid's guardian.
Right, but then there was a later shot where it was a different black-haired person that was not the guardian that looked just like the little kid that I assume is a little kid, but bad now.
Maybe we'll have to see more.
What?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth a double check.
Hair color changed.
We'll see if maybe he's not bad. We'll have to find out. But why do they gotta change his hair from blonde to black and then say he's bad now? And that seems like a little
because
thing.
that's how Spider-Man 3 did
it's
it.
Final Fantasy. They're gonna make a big thing out of this. That this is what Final Fantasy does. So, if that's the vehicle for their drama, then I have questions. But again, we'll have to see. I mean, some of the stuff look cool. I'm also a little skeptical about the direction of Final Fantasy combat and 7 Remake.
Yeah.
So 7 Remake, I haven't played. I don't have a PlayStation, so I haven't played it. But it's
pretty butter smooth. It is. The demo combat was worth getting a sense of it.
Yeah, and I'd heard it was good too. This combat seemed a little different in a way that I wasn't totally on board with at the moment. But it's it's super early. They're saying that we'll talk about this game more next year or in 2 years. So it's clearly very, very early. But
they clearly just wanted to build some hype and let people know that it's happening.
Yeah. It's
let people know they finally let go of Final Fantasy 15 and let it die.
Some people like that game.
They still haven't let Final Fantasy 13 die, for God's sake.
They want to stand
I guess
by it.
Some people still like that game. I don't know.
There's good things to be had in all of it.
So I like 13 too. I don't know about the rest of the trilogy.
It seems to be the fan favorite is 13 too, but it's there's something great in all of them and something to be appreciated. It's like Final Fantasy 2 back in its day. They tried something different. It doesn't always land, but at least there's going to be a compelling world to explore more often than not, even though that one was basically Star Wars. Not that I've played it all the way through, but just Empire versus Rebels and yada, yada, yada. So, I mean, yeah, I get what you're saying, because I was definitely like, oh, more of this combat. But if it is marrying more, Peter Trusenberg was, when of course this happened, everyone had wild speculation, and people have been very hype, like Quentin and Isaac, and, well, everybody in general, but there's been particularly vocal folks discussing what could be. Peter Trusenberg was saying how it seems like it could be a marriage of Final Fantasy 7 and 15's combat, which I could take a little less of 15, but again, I like what 7 was doing in kind of meshing the action RPG with the traditional turn-based RPG combat, and that this does more of that, and maybe with some more Devil May Cry-ish combo flash that is a little bit like 15's. What was the when you got to activate his essential limit break power thing, but it's let you do all kinds of wild combo stuff with the weapons. If it plays more like that, then that I can let go. But if it's as action heavy as 15 was, I think it'll land as well.
I'm not nervous about this. It's like they said, it's going to be out in 2 years from now. What we saw today is what we saw recently is such a slice of development as it exists right now that there's a good chance that by the time we get it, it won't even resemble it. So I'm not too worried. They'll figure out what works and they'll go with it. That's kind of what they do.
Do you figure that? So I understand we'll never see a mainline Final Fantasy game that's like turn-based, menu-based combat anymore. But do you think that we'll ever see a mainline Final Fantasy that is like a little more menu-heavy? Like maybe nods back to like that classic, potentially somewhat tactical, not tactical in like a grid sense, but like tactical in like a decisions sense.
Like 12?
Well, I mean, like 5, like Final Fantasy 5, or like a game that, or like another Final Fantasy game that will give you all kinds of tactical options, many of which could work, but like it's menu heavy and gives you time to think about it. You think that'll ever happen?
They sort of did with Bravely Default.
Yeah, Bravely Default, sure.
I get the feeling that they're probably just gonna stick to doing like stuff like Bravely Default and Octopath Traveler for stuff like that.
Yeah,
I don't think they're
so
going to.
Square's just going to offload that kind of thinking to those kinds of games, and probably.
I think so. Like what Nathan and Jono are saying, like it feels like with Final Fantasy now that they want that to be their flagship, but also their innovative series, and it seems like they want to take what works and be like, oh, we recognize now. It took them a while that people want that nostalgia thing, and so yeah, they have splintered it off to be Octopath and Bravely Default. So yeah, we'll get those experiences there, but I think they're going to keep innovating with whatever the trends in the industry are by still trying to keep that touch of nostalgia in its general mechanics, but also pushing the boundaries.
Looking at it through a nostalgia lens, which is kind of what everyone looks at through nowadays. The generation that played menu-heavy Final Fantasy games is starting to go past. They're going to be starting to focus on, well, Final Fantasy 12, 13. These are the memories for the current generation of gamers. So I don't think they'll ever go back to obviously active time battle systems.
We're getting old and dying. Oh, okay, fine, that makes sense.
It's a way of the past, but I mean,
except for
we
Nathan
still have money, so they still cater to us. I just don't think they're going to be catering to us with mainline Final Fantasies in the future. I think we're going to be like Bravely Default, Octopath Traveler, and also, who knows, they might release another Final Fantasy Dimensions or a similar game along those lines at some point in the future.
Yeah, World of Final Fantasy, yeah.
I mean, I remember when Final Fantasy VII came out, some people within my circle were like, Final Fantasy VII? They just like stand there and look at each other, and then they'll occasionally run up and hit each other. What is this? Why can't I control the guy with a big sword? And obviously, we know better now, and I think a lot of us, obviously, Final Fantasy VII was a huge success. We knew better back then too, but there was probably a not insignificant number of people that were like, why do I have to choose attack on a menu?
Yeah, it's a 3D world. I should be able to run around in it now, right?
Right.
All the time. And with combat, it should be seamless, like, look more like a Chrono Trigger. And anyways, yeah, that's a whole thing. I don't know. Like Nathan, what was your first Final Fantasy again?
Like it technically was 3, but like I never played 3 for longer than I think 5 hours because I got bored.
The DS3?
Yeah, the DS3. Yeah.
Oh,
gotcha.
Okay. That makes sense.
So what was the first one you stuck to?
The one I stuck to was 13-2, and that's still my only Final Fantasy game.
Oh, jeepers. So do you? Why didn't you want to get into 15, for example?
I just wasn't interested in 15. Like I think I like turn-based combat a lot more than action-based. So I didn't really stick to 15. It just didn't appeal to me.
Gotcha. Did you give 12 a try yet? Or no, I guess you said you really haven't. But 12. I think marries.
I have 10, 10-2, and 12 HD collections just in my room somewhere, waiting to be played, and maybe at some point I'll get to it.
You're in for a good time, I think.
I own copies of them.
Okay.
It's cool. I haven't played any of those games either yet. I do want to, but I haven't either. So.
But speaking of like, I guess throwback Final Fantasy games, we all recently got I guess it's a remaster of a classic, not as classic as Final Fantasy VII, but still a classic. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, is it?
Yeah, and it's
Crystal Chronicles Remastered.
Yeah, exactly. And that's literally all it is. I was playing it for review these past few weeks. It is. I mean, I didn't get super far into it on the GameCube, although I got it on the Wii, so I couldn't even do the full Game Boy Advance kind of hookup thing, unfortunately. But I mean, I enjoyed what it was. It's pretty simple, but now that I've played a lot more of it, that's really all it is. And it's just. It sucks because it's such a lovely, cool, magical, wondrous world. Like, it was such a neat departure. And I find, like, that whole series, like, I played the follow-up Echoes. Oh, shoot. Was it just Final Fantasy Chronicles Echoes? No. I forget. Whatever. Jono will tell us later, I'm sure.
Yeah, the game on Wii, right? You're talking about?
Yeah, it was the Wii, but also on the 3DS. Or, sorry, on the DS. Which was weird because they would cross-play. And then the Wii had this weird sort of like you could swap between screens thing.
Oh, right. Okay.
Like there was like two small windows and a big TV window. It was weird.
I think I ended up owning the DS copy of that game. I just I don't know if I still have it or not.
It's called Final Fantasy Chronicles Ring of Fates.
Ring of Fates. There we go.
And there's a couple others. There's Echoes of Time.
That's the one I was talking about. Echoes of Time.
Yep.
Ring of Fates. I don't know if I played, but yeah, it's had a lot of spin-off stuff, and so there's plenty of it to enjoy with the world, but they've just always had these weird clunky systems, and Crystal Chronicles started it all. And if you are have nostalgia for it, that's the only reason you're going to want to play this game, because new players are not going to get anything from this. I find, because it's just, again, it's bogged down by so much of its own bloat to get to its fun mystical world, because the gameplay is very simple, which is great because I've been playing it a bit with Gwen, and she was able to play with one of her friends, which was really fun to watch. And they were able to pick it up relatively easy. They were able to join a game together using a copy of Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered Lite on the Switch, and then Gwen was playing on our PlayStation 4 with her PS Plus account. And so they were able to host and figure it out and play together, and they had a good time with it. And after a few moments of like, how do I switch? What do I do? Yada yada. They got through the level, beat the boss. We're calling out tactics to each other, as well as just goofing around with what's this goblin up to, and whatever. It was really fun to watch that it was so easy. So that's definitely, I think, where it lies, is younger kids and like teens will probably get more out of this experience because it's so simple and approachable. And again, the storybook nature of the presentation is delightful, but you got to have patience, because I mean, load times have come up with lots of reviews, and it's coming up in mine a bit too. They add up, especially when you get to these weird little like storytelling sequences, because Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles just kind of throws you into it and doesn't really tell you what's going on. It's just like, here you are, make a character, and now go. And you're like, what am I doing? I guess I go to these dungeons. And then there's like a little tutorial where that's where you'll kind of get your exposition by asking questions. But if you don't do that, you just have to kind of go. And everything you do, the game will prompt you to read your Crystal Chronicle journal afterwards, and that kind of shows you more of your character's inner thoughts, which gives a bit more of a nicer embellishment to the overall progress you're making in the game. So it's like, there's really not a through line of story. There's a bunch of random sequences that you could encounter on the road that dictates how much more story you're going to get. Like, you'll hear about, oh, there's this Black Knight character, and oh, people feel like they're losing their memories, and all that kind of loosely touches on various aspects of the world, but most of it's just world building and doesn't really speak to a story until like the final moments of the game, where they're just like, so here's the story. We got like 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half to get this out, so here it all is. And it's convoluted, but have fun. And it was cool. It was nice. I like what they're going for. I just wish I'd gotten that earlier.
It sounds like it's a bit of a, I guess, relic of its time remaster, because the game is 17 years old.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And it plays well for a 17-year-old game, and it looks fantastic. Like, I mean, it pushed the GameCube back in the day, and like the textures on it and everything look great now. So it's very crisp and has aged very well with this remaster. So I will give it that. They did, again, a better job on kind of this than they have on other games in the past. But it still can't fix what's wrong in terms of like having to slowly plod over the map, go through these stupid miasma streams that are gatekeeping you, which I feel like that's something they could have modernized. Like, okay, you have the element, you can just skip through it instead of going through loading screen, A minute of walking, loading screen.
I mean, I recall that when the game initially came out for GameCube, all the fun there. I mean, it was never about the narrative or anything. All the fun was couch co-op with your buddies, and then it's that the functionality with the Game Boy Advance. I wish I remembered the specifics of that, but I remember that being a significant part of it. And
it's your menu,
a really
basically.
cool gimmick that people enjoyed, and it sounds like one of the ways this game gets in its own way is the limited or no. Is it no couch co-op? And, the gimmick is different?
Well, the gimmick is different because you can now basically do it on any device. You could argue they've made it easier, and really you can still do couch co-op because most of the devices you can play this game on are handheld. So if you've got an iPad, you've got your Switch, and you've got someone's Android phone, and someone on PlayStation 4. I can have 3 friends over with all those mobile devices, and I can host the game on my PlayStation 4, and we're effectively all playing couch co-op. But what's lost is that you're all not playing in the same world. Only the host is the one that progresses the world. So originally, you all played on the same GameCube memory card and populated the town, because when you start the game off, everyone makes a character for the caravan, and that character has a family that has a job in the host, in the starting town. So you'll have a blacksmith, you'll have your tailor, and you'll have like your merchant, for example, which are 3 kind of crucial ones because they're the ones that are your shopkeepers early on in the game. And then there's a bunch of other tertiary ones. So like my character, for example, his parents were ranchers, so they kept giving me like free meat, and I sent back seeds. They gave me some free plant stuff, and they're just items that go in the inventory, and it's all great. And as long as you have the other families in your town, then you can go to them and buy gear and buy equipment, artifacts and stuff like that, or not artifacts, accessories. But now that kind of sense of you building that world together is gone, because essentially the host player is the one that has to populate their entire town for themselves in their game, and you have to do it on your end as well, which you can do in the light version of the game. Essentially, you just can't go past the first area in the light game. But if you're playing with someone who's hosting the game, you can play through all of the dungeons with them. So while you won't make any progress on your own save, you can, if you're still just playing with just that host all the time, you'll feel like you're kind of going through the game and the story with them if everyone's like kind of there watching. So it was very easy for the internet to kind of jump on, hey, there's no couch co-op, there's the world building sense is kind of gone. It's still there if you work for it. But chances are, with the current state of the world, most people aren't really getting together for close confines gaming, especially when they can do it via an easy jump in, jump out online system, which has been still a joy. I mean, you get like little simple cues to contact people in the game of like your character will just be like, I'm going here, I'm picking up the chalice, okay, thank you, I'm going to cast fire. You can do all kind of that communicating, but beyond that, there's not much else. So Gwen and I have been playing together, and we've had randoms jump in with us, and like it delights Gwen to no end. She just loves playing with other people, even though we really can't quite talk to them. But she's just like, look at us go, we're doing so good, such a great team, and it's so much easier because they're also like really high level, so they'll come in and just like blast through the boss in like 3 hits. And I find that kind of takes the wind out of the sails of the fun of that aspect of it. But it's a cool thing. It feels neat to kind of participate with others, and the fact that it is so easy for others just to jump in is cool. But it does lose a little something when you can't talk to each other and joke about, oh, can you believe that just happened? Or, hey, you carry the chalice for once, I've been carrying it the whole time. Or, why you keep running over there? And all that kind of stuff. So your mileage may vary with that aspect, but it is really, like you said, Pete, that is the best part of the game still, is just the multiplayer couch co-op or the multiplayer combat experience. Like, that is the fun part of delving into the game over the story. But I'm just saying that it is a shame that they didn't give a bit more focus on the story, because they have like a really neat kind of message to convey. And again, the world is super cool. Like, I want to play D&D or something. I just want more in this world. But like, I feel like they control the experience and how you can get through it like so tightly that you feel it just feels really cumbersome to try and get more of it.
So it's super linear.
Yes, because the game takes place over basically by year 5. Every year you have 3 dungeons you can go to and collect myrrh, which is what you bring back to your crystal in your hometown. And once you do that, the year ends. You get a little summary of all your journal entries if you want to watch that. And then you just set back out, rinse, repeat, and you do that for the next 5 years. But as you go, the barriers change between each of like the map sections where the dungeons are located in some of the hub towns. And you can kind of venture further and further out as you get better, but obviously the dungeons get more challenging the further out you go. And with each year, the monsters change as well. Not the main boss, but just like the monsters populating the local map. Just subtle palette swaps, and they're a bit stronger, but they have better drops, and you can find better artifacts, which are persistent gear you can keep, because you don't level up in this game. It's strictly action RPG. It's strictly an action game, but the RPG, I guess, customizability comes from you can alter your stats with your gear, and when you find artifacts at the end of each map, you can pick one that you keep, and then you slowly collect them, and they add passive bonuses that up your abilities.
Interesting.
So that's kind of where the grind comes from. Yeah, it is. It is an interesting shake-up to the system, which I do like, but it can lead you to doing a lot of grinding, which draws out the gameplay a lot too. Like, it's just a game that feels like it has a lot of padding.
Yeah, that's 2003, I would imagine. Like
Yeah.
RPGs back then, they did have a lot of padding.
Yeah, they were just trying to make like a Final Fantasy Diablo-ish.
Yeah, and I mean, the game does have its fan base. I completely missed it. It came out in 2003. I would have been in second year of theater school, rolling on the ground, pretending to be fire. So I actually didn't get a chance to play it at the time. Nathan, did you play it?
That in our...
I guess your only Final Fantasy is 13-2, so...
No, like I said, I own it. It's just sitting there. It's just the case of the Final Fantasy games just aren't on my priority list.
Isn't this the one that starts off with you like airdropping in with a machine gun? Isn't that this one?
Who are you? You're thinking of the one on the one that was strictly on the Wii.
Oh, okay, that's what I remember. Okay.
Which that's something they added to this game. They have this mimic system where when you go around, there's all these little Moogle houses that were hidden, and you could find your little Mog friend. When you're in single player, the Moogle carries the chalice for you, except when it's a lazy jerk and is like, you carry it now. And then you have to carry it for like 10 steps before it's like, hey, let me do it. And you're like, make up your mind. It can get in cold locales and hot locales. It gets tired easier. So they have this weird little like mini game, which I learned was added like basically 3 weeks before the game launched. It was like a weird afterthought by the developer, like the producer or director. And it's this little thing where you can kind of go into the Moogle house and you can cut his hair, which, may sound good in practice, but it is clunky AF because you're trying to use analog sticks to rotate around a 3D model and cut on a 2D plane on a 3D object. It's super annoying and very, very time consuming because you only cut a small portion at a time as well. So it's just, don't do it. It's a waste of your time. Just put up with it when you're in the hot places.
That's not hair cutting.
It's really annoying.
It sounds a lot like people around the world were doing during COVID, actually, with their own hair.
Yeah, exactly. Just very poorly doing it. And you can also spray paint them, so it like boosts the spells that it kind of uses if it drops the chalice and get it to help, but it barely uses the spells. I don't know. It's just, I skipped that whole thing. I used it once or twice and I was like, this is dumb. I'm not doing it anymore because it just was a huge waste of time. Everything, the hair grows back really fast, so it wears off really fast. It's dumb. But they added that you collect stamps from the other Moogle that's hanging in the house, and when you collect 2 of a kind or 3 of a kind, sometimes it's 1, you unlock a mimic, which is usually an NPC from the base game, but they've also added guest characters from other games if you buy DLC, and one of them is that machine gun dude from Crystal Chronicles and the Wii. So you get these skins, which are purely cosmetic. It changes your voice. It just gives you that much more customizability on top of they've added an additional base skin to each of the tribes, additional voices to customize things. So they just kind of added more fun and customizability. So that's kind of one of the other bells and whistles they added. And once you beat the game, they have high-level dungeons, which essentially, again, is just more padding for the sake of padding. If you just want to do more of the grind and get cooler, better weapons and find cooler, better items, you can just keep going and get more powerful. But they're stupid hard. I tried one later on in one of the later areas that I happened to be in. I was like, I'll just try it out, see how it's different. They change it seasonally, so like this place was now in a winter setting, which is cool. It's nice to see the setting refreshed, but I went in, the first enemy just like basically 2-shotted me, and I was like, cool, I can't be here. And so I went back to the very first. So it basically lets you start over again, essentially, and everything looks a bit different, and then you can regrind, find better equipment to take to your towns and get them to upgrade. And and kind of go for some more high-level grind gameplay, but it really adds nothing to the story. So if you really like the combat and want to play more with your friends, then that's what it's there for.
It's fascinating. I remember when we were talking about it when you were going to do the review. both of us were really excited about the idea of, Gwen playing with you and seeing what it's like. And from my takeaway from this, it sounds like for a certain age demographic, this could be a fabulous game and a great entryway into Final Fantasy.
Well, yeah, and that's amusingly, Annette I was telling her about it back when I first got it for review, and we were chit-chatting about it, and she was like, she came back again and one day when she was watching me play, and she's like, what is this game? And I said, oh, it's Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles. She's like, oh, that's why it's so familiar. And I was like, oh, you played it? She's like, yeah, I bought it back when on my GameCube, and I was so excited. It was magic and fantasy and mystical, and this was apparently her first Final Fantasy game. And then she's like, and I hated it. It was awful, which is why I had such a hard time coming back to Final Fantasy when you tried to reintroduce it to me. And she's since kind of liked it again. Hasn't played Final Fantasy IV in ages, but she was enjoying it, and wants to do through 7 as well. But at any rate, yeah. But we were just like, oh, it'd be fun if you wanted to play with us. And she's like, no, nope. We're like, all right, cool. But Gwen and I, that's so far where I'm having the most fun is just, it's now something Gwen and I look forward to sitting down and playing through a few dungeons. And then, have some people hop in, and it's just fun that we get to kind of call off each other and go around, and it's fun watching how she gets it. And sometimes she's very good at support, other times not so much, because she's still a bit of a coward and wants to keep back. And I'm like, but I took the uke. I'm the magic caster. You got to be out on the front line. She's like, oh yeah. So, and then she forgets to heal. And either way, we get through it. We haven't failed a dungeon yet, so we've made it.
Good.
It's just some have growing pains. But I think that's where we're going to get the most fun moving forward. And maybe someday we'll talk Annette into it. Maybe not. Maybe Gwen's dad will join us online at some point. I don't know. We'll see. If we got a whole local party of 4, that could be pretty cool. But at least with just the 2 of us, we're doing just fine. Gwen's savvy enough with the gameplay that it's really not much of a struggle. So she's enjoying it. And I just like the daddy-daughter time. So you got a kid, this is definitely a game to pick up. And yeah, again, if you're a nostalgia freak for this game, then you're gonna love it, because it's just a better version of that game with the nicer new music, and it just looks really, really pretty. Like I'm consistently impressed by how good the game looks, given how old it is and how great they did with the remaster. The voice acting's fun, so like the updates are nice enough, but you're only gonna enjoy your time if you're super nostalgic or you have some cool friends to play with, or cool kids in my case.
Well, speaking of games that are great for kids, one that totally isn't apparently is Crusader Kings III.
I was going to say, I'm like, are you going to try and spin this?
Which
speaking of cool kids, it's Crusader Kings III time.
Yeah, Pete, we had to talk about this a couple of days ago, and we were like, is this an RPG or is it not an RPG? Should we cover it? Shouldn't we cover it? And you made a compelling case, and from what I've seen, I'm really glad you did make a compelling case, because it looks friggin' incredible.
It's really, really wild. I've never played one of these before. I've never played a Paradox grand strategy game before either. So, so Crusader Kings is very much an RPG that does a really good. That looks a lot like a grand strategy game, but Paradox has Europa Universalis for that. Crusader Kings is a game that's almost purely about interpersonal relationships, and it's the game starts off in like the 1000s, like so think of kind of that time period, kind of starting in sort of the early medieval, middle medieval period of like Europe, but the game spans Europe, Asia, and Africa, so it's got this huge scope, and if you look at it, it does look like a grand strategy game. You're looking at a big map, you're looking at all the borders. It's really a lot to bite off at first, because you're talking about there's filters between looking at empires and kingdoms and duchies and counties, and it's all intertwined in ways that I still don't fully understand. Like, how am I part of this kingdom, but I'm part of this other duchy? Like, it's the way it communicates the political twists and turns of that time period in these areas is interesting. It's a lot. It kind of makes you sympathize maybe with some of the folks in power back then, which isn't something you should do often, but because these people are monsters. But really, it's about developing relationships as a leader. So You could be a count, a duke, a king, or an emperor, you know. And one challenge, and the game is very open-ended. So it's not like take your county and build it up to an empire. You could do that eventually through generations and generations and generations of work. You know, your player character will die, and as long as you have an heir, the game will continue. And the relationships that your predecessor formed will have an impact on the child's or the heir's relationships as well. Likewise, things like territorial holdings and whatnot will all be divvied out based on succession laws, and it's all very complicated. And it is, and I don't want to scare anyone away, because the tutorial is also, the tutorial seems to be doing the best it can, but it's also not adequate. You really learn just by playing the game. There will be little tooltips up on the top that will point out things that are going on, and it will send you to the encyclopedia page. And that's really helpful to learn about how some of these systems work. But it really is too much to kind of get into the systems. You're clicking around on a map. You're clicking through a bunch of menus. You're clicking on people, and you're throwing feasts, and you're plotting to assassinate them, or you're plotting to maybe romance someone so that you can blackmail them or whatever. It's a lot of really the breadth of actions you can take alongside and against your kind of political colleagues in this game is really staggering. And so to kind of illustrate, I could just tell a brief story of one of my characters, really two of my characters. So the tutorial starts you off in Ireland, but at any time, and so I played through a little bit of the tutorial, and then I found out that there is a random, like, switch to random character button in the menu. So at that very point in time, you can just jump to whatever character the game picks out at random. And so I clicked it a couple times, and I was jumping around the map, and I ended up in this little chiefdom in West Africa. And I was like, I'll play this guy for a while. And so I was like a pretty young ruler in like my mid 20s, and I had this little chiefdom of like maybe like 4 or 5 duchies and or counties rather. And so he was unmarried, so I married someone. And for some reason, there was another chiefdom just to the north of me that hated me. So the leader there was like twice my age, and for some reason, he just hated me. And I started kind of building up militarily, and I started marching my troops around and kind of unifying the surrounding areas around me. And my wife became pregnant and had my daughter, who was then my heir. So then she was my heir, and I eventually conquered the chiefdom to the north where that guy that hated me was, and so obviously he hated me even worse. And he was still in charge of like the places he was in charge of, but now he was my vassal, so he was under me basically. And
then is there a place that like tracks all of these like hierarchies and stuff, like who becomes what and how to assign them stuff?
Just through different kind of menu screens. Honestly, even now I'm still kind of figuring out some of the menu navigation because it is pretty dense. But just even the thing is, bumbling through this game without really knowing how everything works is maybe the perfect way to play it, because you do feel like you're missing stuff and you're missing opportunities and you're making mistakes that a leader might, especially if like you're talking about a leader who takes over a county at like 8 years old or something. And so it's kind of like a perfect sandbox for that kind of gameplay.
That's awesome. So sorry, you were
like 2 months after I took over this guy's chiefdom, I find out that my daughter is not my child, but it's his child. So this guy who hates me fathered my heir, right? And so that was a whole kind of wild thing. And so I imprisoned him because under the laws that were in place at that time, I had the right to imprison him. So I imprisoned him, and he eventually gets ransomed. Someone who's close to him pays his ransom, and he's able to, and I accepted. I let him go, which was a mistake because not long after that, there was like a random event that shot off where my character went incognito to an army camp, just to kind of see, like, kind of observe the soldiers and the officers and observe their conduct and everything, without them knowing that I was me. And a fight broke out, and I tried to step in, but I got injured. And I quickly found a court physician who had no idea what he was doing, and he removed my eye, and I died the next day. So this injury that I probably could have recovered from, I ended up dying of because the court physician killed me. So my like 10-year-old daughter or whatever takes over, who's not my daughter, but she is my legal heir. But she's not my daughter. She's this guy who hates me, his daughter. And she actually lives to like 27 years old, and she's like pretty good. She's got good diplomacy. She gets married. She has a child of her own, and she's, you know, making sure that the child has good tutelage. You can assign that child to be somebody's ward. So basically, you can assign someone to tutor your child, and it can be yourself too. And they'll pick up some of the skills based on the stats of that character. And but then my dad, who's the guy that hated my mom's husband, right, sent me like this. He hated me too. He was like -100, which is the maximum negative opinion you can have of someone. And he sends me this lavish carpet. He's like, here's a gift for you. And one of the options was, this is very suspicious, get rid of this thing. And so I did that. And then like the next week, he sends me a box of gold coins, and when I open the box, there's like a powder in the gold coins that poisons me. And I did have a chance to survive, but I didn't survive. I died. So my own dad killed me. And then like my heir was like 6 years old now. And so now it's their turn to try to take over. And I was like, that was awesome. And then at that point, I just jumped to another character and started playing someone in like someone near Tibet, like the Tibetan Empire. But it was like some little tiny county within the Tibetan Empire. And lots of cool stories happen there too. But that's the game that this is.
That's wild.
It's just a story generator based in this like historical setting, and it's really incredible.
When are you adapting this to the HBO series?
I know. It's better than Game of Thrones ever could be. And of course, the big thing with Crusader Kings II was like 5 seconds after that game came out, there was already a Game of Thrones mod for it and whatever that apparently people said was really, really good. So yeah, it's very much that, you know, I mean, you know, Game of Thrones inspiration has always been like War of the Roses era or whatever, Europe, and all that like incestuous nonsense that happened there. But yeah, this is like a historical version of that, definitely.
So yeah, I've always thought about picking up Crusader Kings 2 a while ago. So now I'm thinking about maybe I should maybe wait for Crusader Kings 3 to like go down in price, but pick up Crusader Kings 2 and see how I like it.
Well, Crusader Kings 3 is awesome. And I know that people love Crusader Kings 2, and now there's all kinds of, they do the paradox thing where like a game will be out for 5 years and there will be mountains and mountains and mountains of content, like post-release content for it that you can get into if you wanted to. And then they release the next game and it's like not quite like that. I think in Crusader Kings 2 there's an official mode where you can play as like, yeah, you're in Europe and Asia and Africa, but you're also a bunch of anthropomorphic animals or something. That's like actual DLC from Paradox.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, totally.
It's like Lands of Lore.
I see why this game has such a following online.
Oh yeah. And I don't know if this was a bug or something, but in the current game I'm on, the current character up in like the mountain ranges near Tibet, one of the petty kings that hates me to the south of me, for some reason when you click on someone's profile, it'll pull up like them, and then behind them is their spouse, and then it will show their heir. And if there's anybody that they have in their prison, it will show them too, especially if it's someone that you know that's imprisoned by them. For some reason, like I clicked on this guy and everything was normal until I clicked on him again like a few months later, because I think I was trying to murder him because he hated me. So I was trying to like sneak in and get one of my agents to kill him. And his spouse behind him, she was just like topless. I'm like, what's happening? And there is a religion in the game. That's
Remember when I said this isn't kid friendly, ladies and gentlemen?
Right. There is a religion in this game where like people will be nude. It's like an offshoot Christian religion where that really existed in Europe. Apparently, there's a Vice Games article about it, I think, and they will have guys like covering up their goods with fig leaves, but they're otherwise nude. But this person didn't have that kind of religion, and it was like, and I saw her before, and she was fully clothed. I have no idea how that happened. Maybe it was a bug. The game just came out, and these things happen, you know. But
maybe she learned something new about herself.
Yeah, which is cool, you know. She hated me too, though, so.
It seems like a lot of people hate you in this game.
Well,
what are you
just
doing,
the ones
Pete?
I'm mentioning. I had actually a really good friend with this current character I'm on right now that had a lot of really touching, cool stories about it. Like, I found a cat, and then my husband was allergic to the cat, so I gave the cat to her, and she was very happy with me. But then it turns out her husband was allergic to the cat, so she gave it back.
Either way, it sounds like Crusader Kings is like opposite Facebook, where it's all bad news.
I know some cat lovers who would call you history's greatest monster for that exchange.
I mean, yeah, I got the cat back. The cat was happy. I don't know. Made my
the more you've been talking about
my governor's residence rat free for 5 years. I got a rat free bonus.
Oh, well, that's nice. It's much better than Dishonored.
That's a stat bonus you rarely see in video games.
Anyway, game's good. I'm like, don't be
Yeah.
afraid of this game if you have any interest in it and you're so inclined. It's very good, and bumbling through it, trying to learn it, it's really intimidating. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it is intimidating. But just jumping in with both feet, giving it a shot, you'll get some wild stories just by doing that.
I mean, I feel it's the same for like when I was learning how to play Civ all those years ago. You bumble around so much of it to figure out the mechanics. The more you were talking about this game, though, the more it reminds me of Double Fine's big Kickstarter success way back when, Massive Chalice, which is kind of quietly gone by the wayside and someone I want to kind of go back to for RPG fan. But look into that one, Pete. You might be a fan of that as well.
You told me about it before. I do want to play it. I heard about it. I do want to play it.
Okay, cool. But as we were mentioning earlier in the show, we had other games that Jono was playing in that kind of feeds into Dishonored. You went back to the Outer Worlds because we got some DLC. So you've been adventuring around with Pavardi and Nyoka on your reliable ship. And how's that been going?
Yeah, it was great returning to the Outer Worlds. I don't know if I talked about it with Tooker a couple of episodes ago when he reviewed the Switch version. I think he gave it like mid-80s, even though it looked terrible. The gameplay was all still there. I loved it. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a huge Fallout fan, and I felt this was the perfect remedy to Fallout 76 at the time, because it felt a bit like a spiritual sequel to New Vegas. And one of the best things about the Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas was the DLC. They released a bunch of DLC packs for both games, and they weren't just little quests or a couple of extra things. You'd leave and you'd go to an entirely different world space, and it would be its own little self-contained story. And the Outer Worlds has taken a page from this, and they were releasing 2 DLCs, and the first one just got released. It's called Peril on Gorgon, and it is sort of a private detective pastiche. It's very noir, hard-boiled detective-esque, which is crossed with the Starship Captain Firefly-esque world of the Outer Worlds. And it doesn't, you kind of would look at that and say, does it work? And then it works really, really well. So the plot of Peril on Gorgon is a package is delivered to your good ship, the Unreliable, and you open it, and there is a hand inside holding an audio recorder. And you listen to it, and it's a guy named Lucky. And Lucky had taken on a job on this asteroid Gorgon, and apparently did not have very much luck with it, and he asks you to take up the case. So you are sent to a mansion, and the mansion is it's an abandoned mansion that's owned by the Ambrose family, and you find Minnie Ambrose upstairs in it drinking, and she hires you to go to Gorgon proper and find her mother's journal. Her mother was a research scientist, the head research scientist of the Spacer's Choice facility on Gorgon. So you land on Gorgon. There are a few people left on it, but for the most part, it's pretty abandoned. Except it's covered with marauders, who are your enemies, and they're just kind of crazy humans who had just lost their minds and kind of become savages.
I mean, that I guess explains a lot of the population dwindle. It's not like it's the most picturesque looking place.
No, it's not. It was abandoned years before, so everyone on the planet, besides the ones who are like inside this bar, which is kind of your hub space, are like research scientists and salespeople and executives from Spacer's Choice who were left there and just slowly lost their minds over the years. So your job is to find out what happened on this asteroid, find the journal, and return it to Minnie Ambrose. But then from there, it takes a couple of twists and turns, obviously, because it's a detective pastiche, and you uncover a dark secret, which was a little underwhelming to me at the time. I'm not going to ruin it here, but it was a little underwhelming. If you play it, I think you'll see what I said. I think in the review I said it's very Serenity-esque.
Yes, you weren't shy about that in the original, nor in this one.
Yeah, I mean, The Outer Worlds is very inspired by Firefly, and this feels kind of inspired by its feature film continuation, Serenity. And that's not a bad thing, because, I mean, it's a great movie and it's a great game. So yeah, if you play The Outer Worlds, you know what this is. There aren't a whole lot of new gameplay mechanics put into the game. The level cap's lifted. There are new weapons to go along with that level cap, so you're not stuck with like level 24 weapons if you're now at level 35.
Yeah.
And there are a few new science weapons strewn throughout Gorgon that you can find, which have some interesting effects on the enemies. Oh, there are also a few new extra perks and a few new flaws. But for the most part, if you played The Outer Worlds, you know what you're getting. It's still The Outer Worlds. If you had problems with that game, you're not going to find any of them solved here. It's not a sequel, it's a DLC. But if you did like The Outer Worlds, you're going to love it. And I very much enjoyed it. I loved meeting all the new characters. I thought the setting was very imaginative. We got to get a little bit of a deeper dive into the mechanics of one of the corporations, Spacer's Choice, which is like the cheap goods one. And I thought that it expanded on the lore in a very interesting way. Yeah, but I really liked it. I gave it a recommended because we don't score our DLC reviews. So yeah, if you do own The Outer Worlds and you really liked it, I say get it. It's just going to give you some more content. It's going to give you a fun time. It's going to give you a few hours of enjoyment. And depending on your playstyle, there's lots of conversation choices. You can fight your way through. You can stealth through if you want. And there are little jokes and little expansions to other areas, but for the most part, it doesn't impact the actual, like, the main quest. The only real problem I had with it is after you beat the DLC, you then have to beat the Outer Worlds again to see the ending of the DLC.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that in your review. That's so weird.
It's really frustrating. Like, again, from its Fallout inspired DLCs, but at the end of each of those DLCs, you get ending cards, just like you would at the end of the actual Fallout 3 or New Vegas. But you get the cards at the end of the DLC, so you kind of get it as its own self-contained experience. But because now you don't until the end of the Outer Worlds proper, if you want to see the ending, you have to beat the last dungeon again. Or if you want to see both endings, you have to beat the last dungeon twice. And that was frustrating. It was annoying. It felt like it was an unnecessary extra step, I guess, to see the ending. And if you played through the game before, you know what the ending is. You don't really need to play it through it again. You might want to make some different choices, but yeah. But that was my only real problem with it. It wasn't exceptional. It wasn't a brilliant piece of DLC, but it was a fun piece of DLC. And if you like film noir, if you like hard-boiled detective fiction, it's worthwhile.
So you're better served to kind of hold off and wait for the DLC to come out before really plowing through the whole game. So that way you don't kind of run into that repetition.
Yeah, I mean, the DLC takes place prior to the last mission. Once you finish the last mission in the Outer Worlds, there's no way to continue, which is a shame. But once you beat the game, you beat the game. You can't explore the colony in its new state after you're done. So you have to beat the DLC before you beat the game.
Gotcha. So having just jumped out of like Dishonored and stuff, is this one that's might be on your radar, Pete?
Not particularly. It seems cool. It seems fun. I love Fallout. I mean, I think Fallout New Vegas is one of the best games ever made, period. but and it's a lot of the same DNA in that, but I don't know, something about it just didn't really jibe with me from the beginning. So it's kind of one that I'm content whenever there's something that I can be fairly certain to be content with letting it slide by me. I'll do it because there is not enough life in our lifetimes to consume all the content that's good to great.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's part of the fun about working at RPG Fan. There's always something new.
Yeah, and it's hard to ignore when everyone there's always someone at the site who's also so impassioned by it. So you that excites you, and you're just like, well, you seem so excited about it. I want to try this out.
On that note, I think everyone should probably play Yakuza.
That can yield some good fruits too. Getting into things you might not normally get into because of someone's enthusiasm is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm sure we've all had things that have surprised us at the site, either a review that we've read and or a game that we finally experienced for ourselves that we're just like, oh, that was delightful, actually. Neil Chandran is the most the poster child for that's for sure.
Yeah, some of the games he reviews, I'm like, I've never even heard of this, and it turns out to be a real hit with him. So,
yeah, exactly. But yeah, speaking of people at the site, Nathan, you're still here. We haven't heard a ton from you because I know some of the stuff isn't in your wheelhouse for games you love. But I know one thing that is something called Rune Factory that we just got some more of coming out soon.
Yes, finally. I'm so excited to talk about Rune Factory 5. Like just seeing the images of it and finally seeing Rune Factory in HD was exciting. It's so
yeah, because the most thing we've gotten lately is just the remaster of 4, but we really haven't gotten one on the consoles. Was there one on PlayStation 4?
No, there wasn't because the studio shut down after Rune Factory 4 came out. So I assumed the series, the series was dead. For this past decade, was it when did Rune Factory 4 come out? 7 years ago.
And then you got the remaster, and you're like, woo!
Yeah, I got the remaster. When they revealed Rune Factory 5 last year during Nintendo Direct, I think I actually cried. Legitimately, I think I actually shed tears.
You just want more to come.
I just love Rune Factory. The series is it's close to my heart. So
yeah, it's you can definitely see when we've talked about this a bit before, where Stardew Valley has kind of taken a lot of what Rune Factory brought to the classic Harvest Moon model in the dungeon crawling and with a little bit of monster fighting and stuff like that too. But yeah, Rune Factory is the one that started it, and if you want that in that more anime mystique, that series is great for it, and it's understandable. This would definitely be in your wheelhouse. JRPG fans are definitely going to find a lot more mileage with Rune Factory than they would with Stardew Valley. And yeah, that new teaser we just got looks great. We can ride the woolies now,
yep.
And presumably other monsters. So that's really exciting. But yeah, what are you most thrilled by with this?
I just want to see more of the characters because that's what Rune Factory is always known for. Is
right.
They always have such quirky cast of characters, and it's always just so much fun to hang out in town and meet everybody.
Yeah, and there's generally a lot to talk about with them, and the stories you can unlock are pretty that's the other thing too, is Rune Factory brings a really interesting story trajectory to the game that, again, Harvest Moon was pretty light on.
Yeah.
What's this coming out on?
So, Rune Factory 5, it should be on Switch. I don't think any other systems. I'm pretty sure it's just Switch.
Okay, cool. I was curious because that enthusiasm was getting to me. Speaking of enthusiasm, it's I gotta try this.
At the moment, it's a Switch exclusive that should be coming out in 2021.
A Switch exclusive.
Yeah, you can get its prequel, I guess. Rune Factory games aren't in any kind of chronological order. Well, they feature the same world, but everyone's character is different. You can get Rune Factory 4 on Switch right now.
Yeah, Rune Factory 4 Special.
Yeah, the remake of the...
Are any of these on Steam?
I don't think so, because they're always Nintendo handheld exclusive.
Yeah, they've always been on 3DS for the DS and then 3DS.
Actually, no, I'm sorry.
I've had my eye on a Switch for a while.
So I guess the numbered games were exclusive.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if they'll ever get around to porting these. They would translate well to PC and other consoles, but they seem to be pretty married to Nintendo as a console.
like maybe they'll port like the console Rune Factory games, but I don't see them porting the handhelds, the ones they would have at this point if they wanted to.
Yeah, or even like it could have been to Vita, but that's long. But I mean, the dual screen
I
thing.
feel like Nintendo is going to be a bit of a bit jealous about sharing this particular series. It looks like they have, considering that has been exclusive to Nintendo DS, 3DS, and now Switch for the entire time it was out. I don't think that. I think they either would make a very lucrative deal to make sure that it stays only on their systems, or there's something in the contract that says, it has to be only on Nintendo.
Yeah.
If I just pick it up off of eBay for the 3DS, Rune Factory 4, that's still cool, right?
That's so cool, yeah. Special didn't add like a ton to the base game. Like there was like some new scenes like that's outside the game itself, and then there's obviously the graphical enhancements. But other than that, you can pick up Rune Factory 4 and be perfectly fine.
Okay. Interesting.
But yeah, like you were saying, Nathan, we haven't really seen, I guess, much of. Like, we saw the town, but we didn't really get to see any of the eligible bachelors, bachelorettes, and the other citizens really in any great detail. But presumably we'll get more.
That one, I think, purple-haired girl, I think that's the only one they showed at all. So,
and since Rune Factory 3, because Frontier you had to be just a guy, I think. But I think 3 on, it was both genders.
I believe so, because I remember 1 was specifically a guy because they had introduced story elements that made it specifically a guy. I know 4 for sure was multiple was boy.
Yeah. But either way, it's looking pretty sharp, and yeah, I mean, I'm enthused for it in some ways as well. I've just got so many farming sims on my plate now these days that I don't know if I'll be getting it day one by any means.
What was the last one you reviewed?
And for Nathan or farming sim?
Farming sim.
Oh, farming sim. The
Summer
last one
Mara.
I reviewed would be, yeah, exactly. Summer and Mara was just after Friends of Mineral Town. And there's more stuff coming up, but I don't know if I'll jump on it. But it's always it's me or Nathan, it seems, these days. But I mean, even then, I didn't review Friends of Mineral Town. I just worked on the video review. That was Nikki who did that one.
Oh yeah, that was
So yeah, so there's at least 3 of us now who are farming sim fans. So it'll get to somebody, I'm sure.
I think our dear editor-in-chief, I believe, is also a farming sim fan. He's just not.
Yep. But he has enough on his plate already. But yeah, like I don't know, there's a lot of love for the farming series. It's near and dear to the hearts, I think, of many people at RPG Fan. There's just something so nice about those games.
I always just get the enjoyment out of it. I'm always addicted. Like every single time when these games come out, I'm just like, my sleep schedule is just gone. Like forget it. It's like I'm staying up till like 7, 8 a.m. playing this game, and then waking up and doing it all over again.
In Rune Factory 4, the combat was still kind of the same. Like you couldn't really target or anything. Was it just kind of run around and button mashy?
Yeah, it's just kind of
thing.
button mash combat. It wasn't like Rune Factory's never been like the best at combat, but when I saw Rune Factory 5's combat, it looks really good. Like they've made looks like there's some special attacks in there that like goes into specific animations.
Yeah, I like that whole angle of you being a ranger now instead of a farmer, so to speak. But also, yeah, that you can kind of the relationships you develop, you can call citizens in kind of to help you, and I think that's pretty neat. And I guess we'll also further encourage the relationship building aspect with not just the partner that you desire to marry.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see and wait for more details, but I really like what I saw so far.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like Rune Factory could translate well even to having a turn-based system if that was the case, but not that they're going to do that. I think it's going to stay action-based. I would just love for them to add a freaking lock-on mechanic. Like if the combat was somewhere like what was added to Trials of Mana, the remake, that would, I think, work beautifully in Rune Factory 5 and be a lot more fun instead of like the kind of unwieldy, you might hit it, you might not, that has also plagued like Dragon Quest builders and such as well.
I don't know. I personally found the combat of 4 perfectly fine, but then again, I always use like I just brought out twin blades and I just like spam the attack button until I hit things.
Yeah, it is very like very much like Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles is like that too. Like you do have like a 3-hit combo system if you can get the timing down, but really there's not too much else nuanced to it. So yeah, these special attacks might add a bit more, I guess, tactics to it.
Yeah, maybe a little bit more variety.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you can always bring out different weapons, but there's only so much you can do with the base combat.
Yeah, and I think in like Frontier, you could get like charge attacks, I think. It's been a while since I fought.
You can do that in
that
4
game.
too. You have charge attacks where like stuff like when I use twin blades, I can do a charge attack and then I'll knock the enemy in the air. So this way they can't move while I wail on them.
Oh, okay. So yeah, and it was kind of like your farming implements too. Like as you upgraded them, you got better charge ability.
Oh yeah, the fun thing is this hitting, trying to kill monsters with farming tools or with the watering can. It's always hilarious.
I forgot that you could do that. I always thought it was funny that the watering can had an attack value. I'm like, why would you do this?
And it's useful too because it's a water element weapon.
That's fair. That's true. There is a practical element to it. But that's 2021, so I'm sure we'll get some more reveals. They'll be focusing on the eligible partners you can have, and I'm hoping they take the page too that Story of Seasons has gone into of allowing you to have same-gender marriage and such as well.
Yeah.
Which wasn't that in 4? Didn't they add that?
Sorry, which one?
To special?
No, they didn't add to special, which I was kind of sad by. I mentioned that in my review that hopefully Rune Factory 5 will add like same-sex marriage.
Yeah, because it seems do it. It's this day and age. Just do it.
Yeah.
I don't see why there's any reason not to.
Like I know the reason why they didn't do it because they didn't want to change too much of the base game, but for the sequel, they should have it.
Yeah, I suppose it was more of a direct port than like Friends of Mineral Town was more of a remake. So maybe that was something easier to fix in the code, but I don't know. I feel like it would have been that hard, but whatever. I get where you're going with it.
Yeah, they had to like redo the story, and I think they barely had time to even do that.
Gotcha.
I think they're too busy working on 5 to like. There's kind of like here's 4 just to kind of like get Rune Factory back in people's minds and then work on.
Absolutely, it was build hype, tie us over. What monster are you most excited to ride, Nathan?
Actually thinking 4 you could ride animals. I remember like riding my cow a lot, or the Buffamoo, I think it's called.
The Buffamoose?
Yeah,
which is a great name for a monster.
That's always funny, just using my Buffamoo, just charging into combat on a cow. It's just like the image of it is just funny.
I want to see like a marriage of the raising animals aspect kind of combined with like the monster rancher aspect. That'd be great.
Oh yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
That'd be insane though. Be a lot of extra gameplay elements introduced into there. But aside from this, I know you've been playing another game, which we won't go into right now because you're still kind of making your way through that. But we'll hear about Sword Art Online another time.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. You see,
maybe
you have feelings on it. That's all I know.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I'll have time and something in the future to come back on and we'll talk about it.
That works. But yeah, I think that brings us to the end of our show. We've gone on a journey. Maybe not as wild as Pete's adventures in Crusader Kings III. But, we laughed, we cried, we rode Buffamoo. Not really.
Nobody was assassinated.
I actually just downloaded Crusader Kings 2 while doing this podcast. It's actually free to play right now.
I'm still not sure if the physician's mistake was really a mistake or not, actually.
You're still thinking about it?
So it might have been 2 assassinations. I don't know. I'm just putting it out there.
How much is this game gonna creep into your life, keep you up at night?
Yeah, kind of.
I think
it is something I think about offline. It's something I think about when I'm not playing it. That's for sure.
It's not a bad thing for a game. I had that happen. I can't remember if I mentioned it on this podcast or if it was just in a pre-show at some point. But just that I was playing Summer and Mara so much that I remember going into the grocery store and seeing pineapples. I was like, I need pineapples for a recipe in my brain. Translating that over to Summer and Mara because I've been playing it too much and was obsessing over the need for pineapples that I couldn't find anywhere in the game yet just because it hasn't progressed to the point in which I could access an island that had pineapples.
It's like a cake, I needed it but it's upside down. I need it.
Exactly. And so, yeah, it was just like, my brain was just like, you need to get that pineapple, just unreasonably. And then I had to like step my brain out of the game mode for a half second and be like, no, brain, we don't need pineapple. Greg in video games does. I don't actually need it, so let's not buy pineapple today because it will not serve the purpose you think it wants.
Thousands of dollars in augmented reality equipment.
Oh, that's a good point. See, there's an angle.
Yeah, I suppose I can see that. That's valid. But at any rate, thank you everybody for being on the podcast today. It's nice having Pete and Nathan back again.
It's great to be back. Yeah, thank you.
And everybody, if you have questions, complaints, or pineapples to email me, you can hit us at podcast@rpgfan.com and find me at gdelmy on the Discord. Jono, where can people find you online?
You can send me mail if you'd like at jlogan@rpgfan.com. I have a Twitter account. And, I'm always here, so if you have anything that you want Greg and I to talk about on the show, send her on in, and we will.
Yeah, exactly. Pete, we know you have a fancy business card, but people don't have access to that. Where else can people access you?
Pete Barbero #1 on Twitter. Pete Barbero 1 on Twitter. And if you're so inclined, I'm RG Halfpenny on Twitch. And I'll just say, if you ever find yourself with some pineapple, make sure you don't throw the skin away. Make sure you cut it off, boil it up with a stick or two of cinnamon and some sugar, and then you chill it. Or you can drink it hot. So you drink it hot right after you boil it up, or you can chill it for later. It's excellent.
Well, thank you for being on Culinary Encounters.
Yeah, that's a nice recipe. Also, little known fact, you can just utter Battletech, Battletech, Battletech into the ethos and it'll summon him.
Yeah, if you look into a mirror, if you look in a bathroom mirror with all the lights turned off and you say Battletech, 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 I'll appear behind you with a Timberwolf.
That'd be frightening as hell. What happened to my bathroom? Anyways, Nathan, where can people find you?
You can find me on our Discord. I am Smash King on Discord, and then my Twitter is @SmashKing27.
As always, you can check out our other podcasts. We have Retro Encounter. Rhythm Encounter is back in case you hadn't heard the news on the last episode and such. Yay!
It's so awesome. Go listen to it if you haven't. It's awesome.
Great to have it back. I mean, Micah edited the last episode and afterwards was like, I need all 3 of these albums you all talked about. So that needs to happen for most people when you listen to it. It's just, again, passion fuels a desire to join in.
And if you haven't listened to the last episode of Random Encounter, it was sort of like a rhythm random crossover. So if you wanted a taste, that's what you're going to get from Rhythm Encounter.
Exactly. You want more of that? That's where you go. Keeping up on current events, Had and Eric have the Phoenix Edge podcast. They also talked about Final Fantasy 16 speculation recently, amongst other things. So go check them out. Check out their live stream on Fridays, if I'm not mistaken. And aside from that, folks, again, episode 200 is coming up. So please,
maybe
send us emails with some ideas.
Really?
We've been getting a few.
Big?
Oh, yeah. It's going to be huge.
I mean, it's a big number.
We got Patrick Stewart. We've got... Oh, actually, do you hear?
We do not have
about
the budget
Patrick Stewart, Mark Hamill crossover commercial?
It was very funny, and I like the way they twisted it. But no, we don't have any of those celebrities. But we'll have us here, and we're kind of cool, right? I mean, I'm on shows sometimes. It's almost like being a celebrity. Not really, but at any rate, we're gonna do some fun stuff and hopefully get some listeners involved with, your feedback and such, and try and make that happen. We've already had some good suggestions that have gotten the gears turning with what we want to bring to the show for episode 200. And aside from that, that's pretty much it. Thanks for being on, everybody. For myself, for Jono, for Pete, and for Nathan. Take care.